In 1975, delegates from throughout the world gathered in Nairobi, Kenya, for the 5th Assembly of the World Council of Churches, the first assembly to take place in Africa, a continent where Christianity was experiencing rapid growth. With more than 650 voting delegates, the assembly had a greater geographical, confessional and cultural diversity, and greater representation from the global south than ever before. At the opening act of worship, a young Maasai girl wearing full traditional ceremonial dress carried a large Bible in Kiswahili. She spoke the first words of the service as she placed the Bible on the lectern in the midst of the assembly hall. This is the word of God, which bears witness to him who frees and unites. A reference to the assembly theme of liberation and unity. Jesus Christ frees and unites. Only 22% of delegates were women, even though this was double the proportion at the previous assembly. But 1975 was also the United Nations International Women's Year, and the Assembly picked up the impetus of the WCC's consultation on sexism in the 70s held in Berlin the previous year. For the first time, one plenary, Women in the Changing World, was led entirely by women. And alongside issues of human rights and racism, the Assembly dealt with the liberation of women from the discriminatory and oppressive structures of sexism. The Assembly gave its support to the study programme on the community of women and men in the church that would culminate at a World Conference in Sheffield in 1981. With its emphasis on liberation and its location in Africa, the Nairobi Assembly also resonated with the WCC's programme to combat racism, launched after the Uppsala Assembly in 1968, and which focused in particular on the struggle against white minority regimes in Africa. There was another area in which the Nairobi Assembly marked a new departure, namely that of interreligious dialogue. 5 guests from other religious communities were invited to take part in the Assembly, and for the first time there was a debate involving representatives of member churches about fundamental issues of interreligious dialogue, a dialogue that has continued for more than 4 decades. And in another departure that pointed to the future, the issue of environmental responsibility was placed firmly on the agenda of a WCC Assembly by Charles Birch, an Australian professor of biology, in his plenary presentation. I speak of threats to human survival, threats resulting in declining quality of life for large sectors of humanity, with the poor suffering most, threats to sheer survival of whole populations, and ultimately the threat of total extinction of the human race.